Left stranded in the unforgiving Kansas territory of 1859, Elizabeth Norwood watches her wagon, and the last pieces of her past, burn to ash on the open prairie. Just when despair begins to claim her, rancher Zachary Grayson rides into the smoke and offers her safety she never expected. Drawn together by circumstance and strengthened by the hardships of frontier life, Elizabeth and Zachary form a bond that slowly turns her loss into a new beginning. But as challenges rise on the plains, both must confront their fears to embrace the hope, love, and future waiting to be built between them. In the harsh Kansas territory of 1859, where the prairie winds howled like restless spirits and the sky seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction, Elizabeth Norwood stood helplessly as flames devoured the last link to her old life, her wagon. What had once held her mother's quilt, her father's tools, her carefully folded dreams for a fresh start, was now a heap of charred wood collapsing into the dust. The fire had come fast, whether from an overturned lantern, a stray ember, or simply bad luck, she couldn't say. All Elizabeth knew was that in the span of minutes, everything she carried into the frontier had been reduced to ash. Alone, shaken, and miles from any settlement, she felt the crushing weight of despair settle in her chest. Then, through the haze of smoke, she heard the thunder of hooves. A rider emerged from the rising morning light, broad-shouldered and steady in the saddle. He pulled his horse to a stop, scanning the burning wreckage before settling his concerned gaze on her. "You hurt?" he asked, voice deep with a hint of urgency. Elizabeth shook her head, though her trembling hands told a different story. "Just, frightened. And I've lost everything." The man dismounted and approached with quiet confidence. "Name's Zachary Grayson," he said gently. "My ranch is a few miles east. You're coming with me, can't leave you out here alone." Normally, Elizabeth would have hesitated. Prairie stories often warned of men who took advantage of the desperate, but there was a grounded sincerity in his expression. Something safe. Something steady. And at that moment, she had nowhere else to go. Zachary lifted her onto his horse and rode toward his ranch, the flames of her wagon dwindling behind them. She expected more fear, more heaviness, but instead, a strange calm settled into her bones. Perhaps it was shock. Or perhaps, unknowingly, she had just crossed paths with the man who would change her life. A new life begins. Zachary's ranch sat against rolling green hills dotted with cattle and framed by a whitewashed cabin and a tidy barn. Inside, his sister Clara greeted Elizabeth with warm eyes and immediate understanding. She welcomed Elizabeth as though she were a long-lost friend rather than a stranger rescued from disaster. In the days that followed, Elizabeth found herself slowly woven into the fabric of their home. She helped with cooking, mended shirts, tended the garden, and even learned to ride one of Zachary's gentler mares. At night, she sat on the porch with Clara, listening to the cicadas sing while the stars spilled across the sky. Zachary often joined them after finishing chores. He was a quiet man, words carefully chosen, gaze steady but kind. Elizabeth noticed how he always asked if she'd eaten, if she felt comfortable, if she needed anything. And though she insisted she was fine, something inside her softened each time he showed such genuine care. One evening, while repairing a broken gate together, Zachary shared his own story, of losing his parents to illness, of running the ranch alone until Clara arrived, of carrying burdens he rarely spoke aloud. Elizabeth listened with full attention, grateful he trusted her with pieces of himself. And in return, she opened up about her own past, her dream of becoming a healer, her hopes for a land where she could build a life full of purpose, and the fear she felt when watching everything she owned burn. Zachary's voice was quiet as he said, "Sometimes losing what we thought was our future is the only way to find a better one." Those words stayed with her. From loss to love. Their bond deepened in ways neither expected. Elizabeth found comfort in Zachary's steady presence, and he found warmth in her laughter, something he hadn't heard in his home since childhood. Clara teased them playfully, but always with a knowing smile. As summer stretched across the plains, Zachary began walking Elizabeth to the ridge overlooking the ranch. There, in the soft glow of sunset, she felt herself fall not just for the land, but for the man who had rescued her at her most broken moment. One evening, Zachary paused beside her, holding his hat nervously in his hands. "Elizabeth, when I found you, I thought I was meant to help you. But you've given this place life again. You've given me life again." He took a breath. "If you'd choose it, I'd like to build a future with you. A real one." Tears welled in her eyes, not from grief, but from finally feeling chosen, safe, cherished. "Yes," she whispered. "1,000 times yes." And there, on the Kansas plains where her past had turned to ash, Elizabeth Norwood found a new beginning. A home. A partner. A love strong enough to transform heartbreak into hope, forever.